You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to this week's episode. With us today is a very special guest. Ben Guttman is a marketing entrepreneur and educator, and is the author of Simply Put, Why Clear Messages Win and How to Design Them. Ben is a former co-founder and managing partner at Digital Natives Group, an award-winning agency that worked with the NFL, I Love New York, Comcast, and NBCUniversal, the Nature Conservancy, and many other major clients. Currently, Ben teaches digital marketing at Baruch College in New York City and consults with a range of thought leaders, venture-backed startups, and other brands. Ben, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Chris.
Absolutely. Now, I know I kind of explained most of it in your intro here, but tell us more about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you get into what you're doing today, and take us through that timeline?
Certainly. So you mentioned a little bit before, but I started my agency basically right out of college. I went to Baruch College, which is actually where I teach now as an adjunct. I went there and was a marketing major, but I was really a big student government dork, right? And I was really into that. And I was president my senior year. And I didn't actually spend that much time doing the internships and all the stuff that you're kind of supposed to do. So fortunately, I had a professor who ran a marketing agency just outside of the city. He came up to me one day and he said, "Hey, I know you want to start something. We need some help with digital. Maybe we can figure something out." Right. And so this is 2011. One thing leads to another, and we end up setting up shop in their basement. I drove my old 1994 Honda Accord out of the city every day to go and work with them a little bit on some of their work. But really, we were cutting our teeth on the local ice cream shop, the local camera shop, and all these really great kind of small projects. We were two bunch of 21-year-old knuckleheads to really do the work on their Fortune 500 type work that they were doing. So we were grateful to be able to have the opportunity on these other things to really cut our teeth and get our reps in. After a year or so, we realized that we're doing more of our own work. So it doesn't make sense for us to do this kind of reverse commute anymore. So we ended up getting an office in Queens and Long Island City, which was post-industrial neighborhood that's really been transforming into this really cool spot of the city. We got an office there. We eventually started getting more clients. We hired our first employees. We got a bigger office. We got more employees. And then eventually, 10 years later, you're working with the NFL and Comcast and I Love New York and all these really wonderful companies and individuals. And so that was really a great ride. I got to work with some of my best friends, and I sold that business a couple of years ago. Well, now it's been about a couple of years. And since then, I've been doing all sorts of different stuff. I wrote a book. I've been writing a bunch of other articles. I teach. I do consulting on my own. And it's an exciting perspective to do something for so long and then do something else now.
That's fantastic. What a great journey just to hear how you first started in the trenches, getting the low-level clients. Of course, happy to have the work, but again, to be able to build yourself up, to learn more, and to eventually achieve much higher echelon clients, that's incredible. What were some of your favorite projects that you worked on? What were some of the things that they came to your agency for?
Yeah. So it's funny. I try to avoid using the term low level clients because there were low budget clients. There were smaller businesses, but they weren't necessarily any less deserving of good work or kind of full commitment to something. So it's funny when I look now, having that whole experience in the mirror, actually, some of them are the people I'm most grateful for because they trusted us when they had no reason to trust us to do stuff that we were doing. The type of work that we did was kind of the full suite of digital marketing stuff. We would do branding and strategy. We would do websites. We would do mobile apps. Mobile apps are really hot for a couple of years there in the beginning from 2011 to 2013, 14. And then we also did social media and email and digital advertising, all the kind of campaign-based stuff that we did. So we did the full gamut there. When we sold, we actually ended up splitting it along those lines. We said, okay, well, the design development stuff is over here because that's a separate business, to build websites and mobile apps. And then the marketing agency side is another piece.
Nice. That's fantastic. But it just shows just the full service and range of services that you're able to offer. You're just
Mhm.
trying to be helpful to these businesses and get them to where they need to be. Now, with everything that you've done, obviously you've learned so much that you decided to write a book, and it's based on communication, which I think is really important. The book that you wrote, why did you want to base this around clear communication, how to design them? Why is that so important for other people to learn from?
So the same problem I would see with these smaller clients, the same problem I would see with these larger clients years later is the same problem also that I saw in the classroom as a professor and that I see kind of in the rest of my life as a user of the world, right? Is that so many people have such great things that they need and they want to share, but they have really hard time getting it out and getting it across in a way that people really grasp. And so I looked at the research for what works and what doesn't work from a scientific perspective. And I put these things together into what is the basis of my book, which is called Simply Put, Why Clear Messages Win and How to Design Them. And so ultimately, it's about what it sounds like. It's about simplicity, it's about clarity, and it's about how do you craft a message in a marketing context, yes, but also in really any context, right? If you're sending an email or a presentation or a proposal, all those things are just as valid of marketing tasks as if we were kind of putting a tagline together.
That's fantastic. Now, with the evolution of AI and a bunch of tools that exist, are there tools out there that can help us craft better messages that can also teach us along the way?
So I would say the tools in my book, I have 5 different design principles about how you can get there, right? So I say that a clear message, a simple message is beneficial, that it is focused, that it is salient, that it is empathetic, and that it is minimal, right? And there's a lot kind of deeper within all those things. The AI stuff is interesting because I think from our perspective as marketers, it's probably the industry that is most viable for the current suite of AI tools. You can go out and you can use it to analyze the genome and do all those other different things. But in terms of like what can ChatGPT do that would replace somebody's job, a low level, entry level copywriter is probably going to have a really hard time right now measuring up against a lot of stuff that ChatGPT or its peers are putting out there. It's not saying that it's impossible. It's not saying that stuff's going to be better. But if you look at the calculus of you're an agency owner and you got to hire somebody, you're a client, you got to hire somebody, you can make a compelling case that some of those tools should be given a shot. It's funny though, I had a friend who took the principles of my book and used them to train an AI for his own purposes. And ran his email headlines and body copy through there. And basically what came back was he got 40% more sales on the one that was Simply Put versus the one that was his original draft.
Wow. So the Simply Put was him using ChatGPT based on your book, using the training data, and that
Mhm.
one got 40% more sales.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was click throughs to email, but it converted 40% more than the one that was before. He thought that was really ticklish. And I got to catch up with him and see that was a few weeks ago. And I got to see how his latest emails have done. And so that is like a fun little statistic, little fun fact that I like to wave around. But in reality, the stuff that ChatGPT as of today puts out isn't really great when it comes to a lot of like effective communication. It's kind of wordy. It's kind of fluffy. I mean, you can solve for that by giving it certain parameters and asking for certain things. But the thing you have to remember about all these large language models is that they don't really have the understanding behind something. They understand how something is supposed to look on the output. So it doesn't understand the logic of like you're doing something like Dali or something, right? And you're trying to make an image. It doesn't understand the logic of like this street should intersect with that street in this direction. So there should be something behind that building and this car shouldn't be in that. All those different pieces that we as people who have brains that have used the world for our whole lives kind of understand the back side of things that's not visible. That's not known to the current crop of AI tools. So you get stuff in terms of copy that comes out of these things that looks like the right type of thing, but often is hallucinating different facts, is not really actually there a lot of times. It's just kind of fluff or it's just kind of filler instead of being the real meat that you want to get to.
Yeah, I did notice that, and it's funny because I saw a meme or a joke that, basically one person will take an email with bullet points that they're trying to send and give it to ChatGPT and say, "Can you make this better?" And it creates a lot of fluff. And then the receiver of that email, takes that same message and says, "Can you break it down into bullet points for me?" So it's almost like we're trying to appear smarter within our communication, but it ends up muddying the waters with the
Mhm.
communication. We should be a little bit more clear, a little bit more concise within that messaging. And I love the case study and use case that you shared about a larger open rate. We're always trying to increase our values, the conversion rates, the open rate, any little piece that can get us
Yeah.
closer make improvements. That's what it's all about. I love that.
So the AI stuff, it's important to think of it as a way to edit your stuff or to kind of improve your stuff, not as a replacement to create your stuff.
And that's really important too. Now, with your large years of experience over a decade here, what is something that you would want to share with other entrepreneurs who are either just starting out or maybe they're struggling to get traction? Is there any advice that you could share with them that can help get them to the next level?
I would say that there's kind of two things. Number one is get really good at a couple different soft skills. And so these soft skills include writing. We've talked about that. It includes presenting. Right? If you're really good at talking, either on a podcast or on a panel or giving a keynote, if you're really good at that, you can really kind of accelerate everything you're doing by being comfortable in front of a crowd or being comfortable in video or being recorded. That's a big force multiplier to do that. The other thing that is a really great kind of soft skill is networking. Like, make sure that when you meet people, and this is like so cliche, right? Oh, networking. But when you meet people, it's very simple. Go get their business card, get their name, whatever, send them a note the next day. It's not that hard. Go send them a note, send them one sentence saying, hey, check out what you're doing at company XYZ. Looks really neat. Here's something that reminded me of whatever. Just a tiny little like volley of gratitude and of kind of relationship building. You don't have to ask for something immediately, but it's just that it kind of puts you out there. And then go later that day or the next day or whatever, go connect on LinkedIn, send another thing. Hey, great. Hope to cross paths again. And then all of a sudden, you're a real person. You're not just somebody that met them at an event one day. You're a real person that has insights and that has some reason to connect later on down the road. So many people don't do that. Like, they're so bad. I will go to events and I will meet somebody and I will give them my card. I'll get their card and I'll send out like 10 emails the next day. I get like 4 responses, right? It's crazy how many people don't do that. But you know who those 4 responses are? The 4 responses are the CEOs, the big best-selling authors, the university presidents. The people that are like the big shots are the ones that reply. And I don't know what the chicken and the egg type of situation here is, but it sure seems like the compounding effect of building those type of relationships is the kind of thing that gets you into those type of positions. And the other thing I'll say, which is kind of a corollary to that, is do not be afraid to just reach out. The number of people that say no for themselves before going out and getting a no for somebody else is basically everybody. We all do this. We all say, oh, I'm not going to reach out to this person. I'm just going to say no. I'm not going to invite this person on my podcast. I'm not going to ask for an informational interview of this person. I'm not going to just see if we can collaborate on something of this other so-and-so. We all just say no ahead of time. Let the other person say no. Go send the ask. And I don't know how apocryphal the story is, but I heard about, I think it was a Harvard class where the assignment was you have to go get 100 no's in the semester. Everybody fails the assignment. Everybody fails that because people like to say yes. If you ask like, hey, can I get an extra scoop of ice cream for free? Can I get a refund on this thing? It wasn't very good. You get yeses a lot often in those minor situations, but you also get yeses when you email that like Hall of Fame baseball player and say, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. You want to chat for 15 minutes? The yeses are things that you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't ever ask. And I would say swing for the fences when it comes to reaching out and making contact with folks.
Oh, that's fantastic and great advice. It is so true. We tell ourselves no before we let others do the same. And it's funny to hear that they fail the assignment, but I think it's a valuable lesson that they learn. Now,
Mhm.
with your teaching experience with teaching digital marketing, the landscape is changing. It's like every 3 to 6 months or every year, there's a hot new trend or things that change within best practices. What have you noticed in the last few years, the changes in digital marketing that people aren't thinking about?
Mhm. It's been a very weird time for the industry, I gotta say. So I mentioned before when we started, mobile was killing it, right? You can make so much money building mobile apps for clients and maintaining them. And there were people that went around and said, I'm making the HVAC company mobile app. And they went to every HVAC company and they sold them an app for a few $1,000 and they made a ton of money. That is not something that I would kind of with a straight face be able to recommend to a client. For most clients these days, is investing in a dedicated native mobile app. It's not for nobody. So it certainly makes sense for some people, but it's not something that if you have a limited marketing budget is probably going to be worth your time. There was a moment in the beginning where just by having an app, it was like also a PR story, which was valuable in and of itself. But today, nobody's writing up a big blog post over your laundromat getting an app or something like that. It's not important. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is social media is in this really, really weird spot too, where TikTok is the big kind of dominant, Gen Z attention grabber right now. But TikTok's not really social media. It's much more media than it is social, right? You don't really talk to your friends on TikTok. You don't really see people on TikTok. It's like TV. You get whatever the thing is that you want to sit back and watch and just like kill a few minutes. So that just makes it very hard for a lot of businesses to be on there. It makes it a really powerful tool for a lot of businesses because there's some kind of narratively interesting companies out there that have blown up because they do a good job on TikTok. There's one company that comes to mind that I've never heard of them before, but they sell like used, like old retro video game systems, right? And they did such a kind of charismatic job of they get an order and they like show it being packed and they show the old like Sega Genesis or that type of stuff. People visually see that. They like the energy that the host brings. That type of business can blow up on there because it's kind of cool. But I do a lot of work consulting with tourism boards and stuff, and I haven't seen really a single tourism brand really kill it on TikTok. So TikTok's this weird animal. Facebook is just for boomers, maybe a little bit of Gen X. Instagram has a ton of ads. Twitter is owned by a maniac. I mean, all of these things are compounding that social media is in this very weird spot right now. And so when you look at mobile going one way, social going another way, you basically end up with an email and web being the old standbys that have been around for 30 years, and they're probably going to be around for another 30 years, that if you do a really good job just mastering those two skills, everything else gets a lot easier.
That's fantastic. It shows that you don't really need to hop on these trends or feel like you need to jump on the next big thing, because if you stick with what works, that's going to be tried and true. And you won't need to spend time and money investing into these different media platforms or social medias in order to get the word out there, get you found, and get you in front of the right people. Now, where can people find out more about you online and take advantage of your special offer with was it the ebook or the PDF that you were offering?
I have the first couple chapters of my book for free. Yeah. So if you want to grab those, go to my website, go to benguttman.com. So BenGuttmann. There's 2 T's and 2 N's. It's not a very radio friendly last name. I totally understand it. But if you're interested, go grab the free chapter there, sign up for my email list. It comes out every Tuesday. People seem to really like that. And if you want to connect more, if you want to do business together, shoot me an email, connect me on LinkedIn, and love to hear from you.
Thank you, Ben. That's wonderful. And we'll also have links available down in the description and show notes so everyone can have quick access to benguttman.com to take advantage of your special offer. Now, Ben, before we wrap up here, I want to ask, is there any video channel? Is there a book? Is there a podcast? Something out there that just gave you this incredible aha moment, something that you want to share with the audience and the listeners who are trying to improve and get to that next level?
I'm a big fan of if something is old and it still is good, it's going to be good for a long time. So the marketing book that I recommend a lot is Ogilvy on Advertising. It came out like 40 years ago. Some of the examples are going to look like completely outdated and don't make any sense. A lot of stuff about like magazine advertisements and layout, but it totally holds up. People don't change that much. Technology's changed, obviously, but if you go and you learn about how people work, about how people behave and how you can influence, that is going to be a durable piece of knowledge that will help you whether you're on TikTok or whatever comes next.
Wonderful, Ben. Thank you so much. Is there any other piece of advice you want to share with the audience, things that we didn't touch on yet, but you were really excited to talk about, but I haven't asked you yet?
No, this has been wonderful, Chris. It's been a pleasure to chat. The one thing I'll leave kind of a takeaway from the book is there are senders and there are receivers in every context, right? Advertisers, marketers, a lot of times we're senders, but also you could be an advocate, you could be a teacher, you could be a parent, whatever it is. Receivers are the customers, the buyers, the voters, the donors. In any communication context, it's important to understand that it's the receiver's responsibility to pay the price of postage, right? Just as if you're sending a letter, you got to pay for the stamp. It's your responsibility to bear the literal and metaphorical cost of communication, because the receivers woke up today just fine. They didn't need to hear about your new shampoo. It's your responsibility to make sure that your message fits into their lives.
Ben, thank you so much. I love all this advice. Looking forward to seeing all your future success and the landscape changes within digital marketing. Please keep us updated. Let us know how things are going. And we appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Chris. Pleasure to be here. It was a great time.
Thank you so much.